week of the SFDC Academy live screen. Peter, welcome back as always.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Keep forgetting what time it is over there. And good evening, I suppose, for the States yet again. I keep forgetting that too.
Yeah, we've got viewers in the States, so let's not forget them as well. So this week, Peter, we're going to start a new, hopefully monthly wrap-up of all of the news that's happening in the kind of Salesforce ecosystem. I can't guarantee we'll get all the news. There's a lot happening, but certainly we've got a few stories that we want to go through today and just sort of discuss, debate, understand where that will shape things in the future.
Yeah, I sort of feel like we should have some kind of sound in the background that breaking news type of sound at the start of this episode. But not all of it's breaking. Some of it's been out. Some of it's actually quite interesting. I think I should stop rambling. We should jump in.
Let's jump in. So the first one is one that I discovered this morning. And sorry, let's just do a nice screen effect so you can see what we're looking at. So this is the news that the, analytics suite is going to evolve with the addition of Tableau and that purchase. I can't even remember if that was last year or early this year. And understanding how the existing analytics product fits into the wider suite. So we've had an announcement on that in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, so interesting one. It's obviously, I think one of the expectations was that Tableau would disappear as a brand and all that type of stuff and just be absorbed into Einstein. The interesting is that's actually not what's happening. It's actually still sitting out there as its own brand, and it's actually replacing some of the Einstein, so that weirdly, branding with Einstein Analytics being rebranded as Tableau CRM, which is interesting. I'm not really sure what Tableau CRM is. And I've never actually played with Tableau itself. Have you had a chance to dive into that at all?
Not Tableau proper, no. So yeah, it's an interesting decision to call Einstein Analytics Tableau CRM for native Salesforce Analytics, and it's starting. One of the original sales pitches for Einstein Analytics was the aggregation of multiple data sources from Salesforce and other sources. The wording here has seemed to pull that back to for native Salesforce Analytics, whether that's sort of implying that other Tableau products are where you would go for aggregating those multiple data sources. What's always been interesting to me is that Tableau has a non-cloud element to it with the server version. Yep. You've got a desktop app, I believe, as one of the components as well. Mm-hmm. So very different to the no software logo that Salesforce has had for 20 odd years. But clearly this was a 14 point something billion dollar acquisition. So I guess there was enough brand value in there to warrant keeping the Tableau name and brand alive. And maybe they've realized as well that there's ecosystems in that analytics space where Tableau is really well known and Salesforce just isn't as a brand. And so it makes sense to not dilute that brand recognition that they've got in those other ecosystems.
Yeah, it's interesting. Good to see that it's picking up some of the Einstein functionality. Einstein Discovery going into that platform as well, so that's expected from early next year. That would make it a very, very strong BI tool, I would have thought. Again, I just haven't played with it, so I don't know. I know people rave about it. And I know people very, very were very happy with that as a product before Einstein was around. So it's good. It'll be around for a lot longer in that form. So, but picking up more functionality.
Yeah, and I think we've seen, and I think we discussed one use case with Charlie Isaacs a few weeks ago on the live stream around some of this COVID-related data and visualizing that in Tableau. It's one of the solution components of the Work.com solution that we've talked about before as well. So, this is sort of, I guess, bringing it front and center and declaring where it stands.
Indeed.
And being the size of the organization that it was, Tableau has a huge workforce, I understand. They're going to keep developing this product and likely see a lot more coming in the future in terms of the development of the product and where it's going.
Interesting stuff.
Right. On to our next one. So this is one I noticed last week. We're going to reference let me just bring this up. So I get an email pretty much every day, it seems, from the very good Salesforce Ben website. I'm sure you've seen that before, Peter. I've had the pleasure of meeting Salesforce Ben himself. He's a nice chap.
You make it sound like he's, Santa Claus, by the way.
Yeah.
He is, because he keeps punching out this information. He keeps giving us presents all throughout the year.
And he tends to get all this info pretty hot off the press. So a really good article around the different certifications that are available in 2020, and there's a lot. Some of the recent ones, the new JavaScript one, which if I kind of scroll up, it's kind of mentioned JavaScript Developer 1. Is something new and very appropriate given where Lightning Web Components has gone in the last 2 years. So good to see that recognized. But these two jumped out because these are roles that you and I have talked about offline a lot, Peter, is the role of the, we've got the certified technical architect. That's a big hefty role, and has a big hefty process to go along with it in terms of how you achieve that. Then we've seen, must have been 2-3 years ago, the application architect come in, and what's the other one? System architect come in.
Yep.
But those haven't necessarily mapped one directly to titles that you see in organizations. Definitely valuable skills to have. So these ones were interesting to me because these are titles that you see in roles that people have, the solution architect and the enterprise architect. So these certifications, I don't know where they'll fit in that triangle of all the different architect certifications and whether these become some of the prerequisites to the CTA or others, but definitely interesting to see these roles get recognized with the new certifications, and be very interesting to see their rollout and what the exam structure looks like.
I think the takeaway for me on this is that it's that evolution of the platform and our ecosystem around that platform at the same time. The fact that we've now got the solution architect, the enterprise architect certifications coming just fills out that. Do you remember that pyramid that we had for the CTA? It's that same type of approach, and it's good to see that there's a pathway. If you're a solution analyst, there is a real pathway, a career path on this, and which brings also so much opportunity out there as well from from our side of the fence, being in partner land, and also from a customer perspective as well. I don't know if there was a partner webinar last week, I think, maybe it was in the week before. Everything's blending into one these days. And they asked for questions for that. And I actually asked the question about when this was coming out, because it's one that I'm actually quite interested in myself. It'd be very interesting to get into this and potentially get certified. I should probably get a certification at some time.
Yeah, I think, and that's where I think this image here was pulled from those slides from that partner webinar. So yeah, it'd be interesting to understand the difference between the two. Obviously, the enterprise architect's a bit broader in some of its considerations, and probably how the enterprise architect differs from CTA will be interesting. Is it sort of a slightly easier to obtain CTA type certification? We'll sort of wait and see. That's if they're sort of targeting FY22. That's after January next year, so still a while until we see that one come out.
Yep. Are we missing any others at the moment, do you think?
It's a good question. If I scroll up, you've now got B2B commerce covered, both developer and admin. You've got B2C commerce covered. You're starting to get into the vertical clouds, so the education cloud there. Heroku's been covered for a while. We've got a few of those in the organization. Marketing Cloud Admin's an interesting one because there was and still is certification that I have, the email specialist or something along those clouds, which would seem to align with some of those administration tasks. So yeah, definitely a number of new certifications. And I think I read somewhere, it was probably at the top of this post, that there's 35 plus different certifications now, which that's quite a lot.
Is there anything around the DevOps side for Salesforce?
Not as a certification that I've seen, or one of the exams underneath the CTA is a release management certification.
So that's sort of one part of that DevOps structure when you think about it.
Yeah, but I don't think it dives as deep into DevOps and SFDX as what a specialized certification in that area would look like. That's
one area I'd love to see some kind of, and that then completes all the pillars when you think about as it currently is anyway for the platform. But yeah, definitely DevOps would be a good certification path to see in some regards. So.
Yeah. Right, shall we move on? We've got about 9 stories to get through. So this next one has been widely reported and is interesting just from the point of view of the timing of this news, which this headline clearly brings to our attention. So the sequence of events as I know them were that Salesforce announced a record, can't remember if it can't have been year, it must have been the end of the quarter, but they were giving guidance for how this year was going to go, and it was very positive, and their share price jumped quite considerably. And then the next day, I feel like it was almost the next day, they announced that they were laying off 1,000 people, and sort of the world got their head around that, and it was sort of almost the case of, is that bad news being buried amongst the good news?
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like about 3 weeks passed, and then Benioff starts tweeting that they were going to be hiring, I think it's 4,000 in the next few months and 12,000 in the next year. So yeah, that's an interesting, I guess from a PR point of view, how they've sort of gone about that. And what it makes me think, and perhaps how they could have handled this better, was that laying off of 1,000 people wasn't business performance related. No. As I understand it from talking to a few people behind the scenes, it was essentially a restructure around the acquired and merged in all these companies, MuleSoft, Tableau, the rest of it, and there was a lot of duplication of roles.
Yeah.
So they've gone through more of a restructure, and as a result, some roles have been disestablished, but there was a process underway, as far as I know, that to try and realign anyone who was affected by that with a lot of these new roles that are coming out. So perhaps they could have just got their wording slightly different on that one.
Yeah.
Because it did seem odd.
The timing wasn't good. communication's always key around these things, isn't it, ultimately? But if we put that one aside, if we look at the 12,000 new jobs, Benioff has made those kind of comments before about how big this ecosystem is going to be, and what they're doing to support it as well is we can see is huge. But also, you had a very good quarter, I think, off the back of work.com, with the establishment of that as being that tool to deal with all things COVID. And I've got a point that Benioff tweeted earlier this morning about something else that they're now including in a solution on the work.com platform. So, from an ecosystem perspective, it's good. I saw a lot of people that were included in those 1,000 people that were laid off, but we are in a strange situation in this ecosystem that we pretty much are wiring out the COVID waves that we've had, and I'd expect most of those people wouldn't be out of a role for too long as well. So I would hope not, anyway. So.
Yeah. So what'll be really interesting here is where will those 12,000 jobs kind of sit? I'm sure it's spread kind of across many different departments, but that's a big jump from 54,000 to 65,000 by this time next year. Even for them, that's a big jump.
I mean, Salesforce is moving into a brand new building in Sydney. When would that be? Probably late next year, I suppose. I think that's still tracking to plan. So, they have to fill a number of floors in that building. I wonder how many of those 12,000 are marked for across ANZ.
Yeah, and that's interesting. It feels like the philosophy here is, to keep building the business, keep growing. There's no point. It's almost the Amazon play, super long term. We're not going to make profits now. We're going to make profits in year 25. So if the recurring revenue is there, it's driving this growth, then keep hiring, keep fueling that growth, that continued growth machine. They seem to, despite 20 odd billion in revenue, the profit seems to be in the low tens of millions on the different ways that they measure it. Sometimes even a loss, I think, depending on if it's the standard accounting or other different measures they use. So they're going to keep investing, keep hiring. So I assume would be a mix of sales and engineering and product development to keep this machine growing. But it's I often in the people we're hiring we recently went through a process for interns for the summer, and naturally university students haven't often heard of Salesforce, so we're introducing them to something new. And I always start by saying, this is the $200 billion company you've probably never heard of.
Yeah.
Which is, that brand recognition, I think it's there when you go to San Francisco and you see bus stops and the tower and everything else, and probably in other parts of the States, but you travel around the world and still a lot of people have never heard of Salesforce.
Well, here's an interesting fact, trivia. The first time they did an external ad on a bus was in Sydney.
Right.
So they trolled it down here and saw what that was like, and it obviously got some value and got some traction out of it. So they started doing it elsewhere.
Cool.
Up until then, they were very passive on marketing out to the public about who they are. So much so that when there was an article in the Sydney Morning Herald over here about the new building, and they referred to Salesforce as a recruitment company, which I still think is funny. Sort of not.
Yeah. Right, so we will wait and see how all those new roles evolve over the next 12 months. And whether, just the process of hiring that many people is so hard. So whether they can even, if they've got the desire, whether they can even just pull it off will be fascinating to kind of see for sure. So on to the next one. Right, I think you mentioned this one actually, Peter, last week briefly. So we're talking about video calls and meetings.
Yeah, this is the now. I thought this was only in Velocity Cloud, High Velocity Sales, whatever it's called. It is enhanced high velocity sales, and so video call coaching, which I reckon is a brilliant thing. And I would like to think that at some point it's going to come out of that and go right across the platform. And that's what I said, the other week. I'd love to get our hands on it and play with it, because it's having, coaching your sales team or coaching a service team, for that fact, ultimately is hard. Having Einstein helping you with that is a great use of that technology. When's it coming out? It's in winter 21, isn't it? Because that's what our last 3 weeks have been about. So yes.
So yeah, this one, there's different parts to this, isn't there? So the Salesforce meetings doesn't, I'm not sure if this includes the video. Well, they were talking about it, there's a Zoom link. So maybe this is sort of helping. There was another feature used to be called part of Salesforce Inbox in terms of organizing a meeting, finding the times that work for everyone, bringing it all together. And this is clearly allowing you from Salesforce to click this join video call button, but that's taking you just to the Zoom meeting URL from what that one looks to be. But then as to what you were talking about, as we scroll down here, this is the video call coaching, which looks to be bringing something directly into the app of some video functionality. Automatic speech recognition and natural language processing. So I guess this is your high volume, you've got a BDR doing probably outbound calling and going through a sales deck or pitch repeatedly enough times that you can get some data to detect the trends of what's resonating, what's not, and sort of go through some call coaching to, I guess, review and improve BDR performance.
Which, I mean, being able to serve up, suggestions about what you should be saying, what you should be giving them, and all that type of stuff is very cool. I can understand why it's part of, what was it called? I keep forgetting the name. Enhanced High Velocity Sales. How can I forget that name, by the way? Enhanced by High Velocity Sales Cloud. Because I expect you need to have a lot of data in there. You need to have a lot of calls and all that type of stuff to actually have some kind of analyzing of that in the first place. So,
yep. And then, so what does enhanced high velocity sales bring as well? So it's more adjusting to the work from home, everything's a video call type world. Right, cadence templates.
Automated prompts for reps to make sure actions don't fall through the cracks. So yeah. So it really is prompting you to with those answers, with those things that you need to do along the way of when you're on the call. I assume.
Right, so we've got pilot in October and GA in what must be the spring release? Winter? Spring? I think that's the way it goes.
Yeah. We skip autumn.
Yeah. Or fall.
Sorry. Okay.
Right, let's truck on because we've still got a few more to get through. So this was one I sort of picked up that was interesting. So a new impact fund that Salesforce Ventures is getting involved in. So they've done 50 million before. Now they're doing another 100 million. And sort of Just trying to find. So here we go. So looking to solve what are we calling it? Intractable social problems for the betterment of the world. So this is an area where more investment is going, I guess, particularly in the current world that we're living in.
So this is going into for-profit companies or non-profit, I wonder, or maybe both. It's more about the focus.
It's more about the outcome, I guess. Yeah. So that's a decent budget they've got to start that initiative and keep going on that. 50 million that they've already invested or in the fund. I haven't seen any details of kind of who they've invested in and that from that fund previously. So we could sort of get an idea of the types of organisations that they're investing in, but definitely fits with the model that Salesforce has around giving back, and clearly using their war chest of cash to aid with that.
It's good. I mean, it's good to see companies that will do that type of thing, especially in this current world where we need those solutions, which they're obviously going to support. So, yeah.
Yep. Excellent. Let's truck on to one that you were quite excited about before we started chatting. So tell me about Scratchpad.
So again, this is one that I saw yesterday, funny enough. I think it was only announced yesterday. So Scratchpad is an existing product that is available, and it's a Chrome plugin from what I understand. And it connects to Salesforce either through Excel or Google Docs. So they've had some raised some capital, $3.6 million, which doesn't sound like a lot when you say 100 million in the previous bit. It's interesting who's invested in them, including the firm that Ashton Kutcher is part of. So whether that makes it more sexy or just more exciting, don't know. I want to get my hands on this. There is a plugin out there, so I want to muck around with it. But basically, we've seen these type of tools before with like grid view and that type of stuff. I suspect that's what this is like. That you can maintain everything inside a Google Sheet or Excel, and that will just pump straight into the Salesforce from there. So, but I think the bit they were talking about was trying to put a different layer on top of Salesforce altogether.
Yep.
So, which is interesting, given we've got Lightning and all that side of things, and we can make that as custom as we want. The feeling I get from this is that it's more simple to use. So I always like simple because I'm a simple guy. So
that's why people gravitate to spreadsheets, right? Because at the end of the day, they're simple. So bridging that gap, if that's what this does or assists with, I can imagine they might get some traction. Yeah.
So my plan is to sort of check it out and see if I can play around with it a bit later on today. So
cool. Okay, we'll look forward to your report back once you've done that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what have we? Right, I think there's another one you came across. So this is really firming up the industry clouds.
Yeah, so it's a bit more. So we talked about this in the last couple of weeks when we were talking about Minute 21, but this is actually the announcement now out to the public saying, they're investing more in this. So this is the Velocity, they acquired. It's now rolling it out with the Salesforce branding, that type of stuff on it, and really integrating that as being part of the platform. So there was, I think it was only announced yesterday, wasn't it? Again, there seems to be a lot of announcements over the last couple of days.
Well, this one was September 30, so a week or so ago.
So that's just tying into what we saw in Winter 21. So.
Yeah. The interesting thing here will be how Velocity had a financial services cloud and Salesforce already had their own financial services cloud, how that kind of overlap of an industry cloud plays together
which one's going to win at the end of the day.
Yeah, a little bit of net new in there, which is easy. But I think education and FinServe were where some of the overlaps potentially were. And Velocity also has a very specific way of implementation and dealing with things that sort of built an abstraction layer on top of Salesforce to make that kind of drag drop easy configuration. But it was a different way of doing things as you would with something that's completely native. So how that gets bridged will be interesting to see. How they sell behind the scenes will be interesting as well. But at least they're clearly trying to get their ducks in a row. And I think they've highlighted before that they see these vertical clouds as another avenue for growth.
Which ties back in with the 12,000 jobs.
Yeah, very true. All right, shall we wrap it up with a couple of tweets that we've both noticed in the last few days? Oh, I've got a nice animation on this one. So, Trailhead Go.
Yep, Trailhead Go is for those of us that know Real Carberg. He was the guy behind Trailhead Go over the last few years. And the most exciting bit is it's now on Android. So all those people that have got, how many Androids are there in the world? A lot more than iPhones,
1 or 2
apparently.
billion.
You can now go into Trailhead via Android. So it's been something that's been wanted for a very, very long time. So it's out. It's in beta. And you can go off and do with your badges and all that type of stuff while you're on the go. So
it's been on iOS for a while. Is that right? Trailhead Go for iOS?
Yep. I think
so this is
12 months, 18 months?
Yeah, I feel like it was at least kind of late last year. So that's good. Obviously, they didn't use Salesforce Mobile Publisher, which would create both platforms at the same time. But there you go. So this is interesting because the times that you would potentially use this was when you'd be commuting, on a bus or a train or some form of public transport, and people aren't doing as much of that anymore. So maybe people can just sit, outside their remote office, and it's sunny outside, and check it out, get a badge while you.
You might also do it while you're watching your TV and you're distracted. And you know what?
Yeah,
I'm going to go do a Trailhead badge.
Yep. Some people are that keen, I'm sure.
It's better than TikTok.
True.
Let's just say that.
Right.
Yeah. And then the last one.
Mr. Benioff. So
this one.
Salesforce for vaccines.
Yeah, this got tweeted this morning. So part of, again, going to make an assumption here because it wasn't linked to anything and it was just a static image that he put up. Actually, no, you can see. It's part of work.com. So you can see they're really investing in that. And it's being used in a lot more places now as well for all the COVID-related stuff, which is great. So this is not suggesting that Salesforce has got a vaccine or, all that type of stuff. It's just saying you can track who's taken the vaccine, and where it's at and that type of thing. So a good use case for Salesforce as you would expect. So.
Yeah, and it'll have that, I guess, all of the components that you would need, email, SMS through Marketing Cloud, portals to follow up and understand if people have experienced any side effects, that kind of thing. They've got the complete toolkit to build a solution like this out. So, and I think clearly, and I think we learnt a little bit about this when we again chatted with Charlie about the existing work.com solution, is they're working with a lot of government departments and health departments already and have been able to roll out the original work.com solution to aid contact tracing and the like. And this is a natural extension as this pandemic evolves and we transition to the next phase of hopefully rolling out a vaccine in the next few months, which is no small task.
No, and I mean, if you to have any kind of tool to be able to manage this stuff in such a short amount of time is a fantastic thing. Don't know whether well, if we look at what's happened in the UK, this week when they reported about their Excel spreadsheet had dropped off a whole heap of information.
Yep.
My first reaction was, well, you need Salesforce.
Yeah.
That would have handled it properly. Having more sophisticated tools to be able to manage this, and it's managing the different elements too, but being able to tie, if they're coming into work, if they've got the vaccine, what time were they here, checking in, checking out, all that type of stuff, and having that one view against the person is a key thing. So, and it's going to be part of our life for a long time yet, I reckon. So,
yep.
So yeah.
So again, clearly a lot of R&D going in this area as well, around where the world is heading and the solutions that the world needs at this point in time. So a lot of effort, and you can see from Benioff's other tweets, if I click into these, he's very clear on what it is. Where's the interesting one? He's tweeted a lot today. This one, you want to get your life back to normal, wear a mask. I've seen him repeat this one a number of times. And then I saw, interestingly, Charlie Isaacs retweeted this one with an addition saying, want to go to Dreamforce next year? Wear a mask.
True.
Which is very true as well. Excellent. So there's 9 or so different news articles. We've only probably scratched the surface of what's really going on out there, but we'll aim to do this probably the first week of every month and do a bit of a wrap up of news from the month before, and keep everyone informed as to what's going on in the ever evolving Salesforce ecosystem. But on that note, Peter, I'll let you get back to. We didn't discuss the weather, but it's a very grey day here, so not terribly warm today. But you look to have a bit of sunshine coming in the window there.
Actually, no, it's grey here as well. It's been raining. So.
Well, excellent. We'll both stay indoors today and leave it at that, and we'll see everyone again next week.
See you all then.